Noted for her skill with the lightsaber before her training with Count Dooku officially began by Darth Sidious, Asajj Ventress was originally trained by Kai Narek in the traditional weapon of his order, adopting twin blades after his death. Already an expert with this weapon style, Ventress's skills were further elevated by training from Dooku in classical lightsaber combat. Dooku also gifted her the set of conjoining fencing lightsabers that became iconic to Ventress, originally constructed by Komari Vosa and fitted with Sith synthetic crystals, projecting red plasma blades. Gensarai 1 stated his belief that Ventress didn't study classical Uruk-Hai until she began her training under Dooku, with a foundation in Ataru and Naiman being the most likely, as Uruk-Hai was an exotic discipline that Narek was unlikely to have known, an idea I agree with strongly. Form 4 Ataru was the most acrobatic lightsaber form and was based upon using the entire body as a weapon in battle, using elaborate acrobatics to generate momentum for direct and sophisticated blade work, while also providing training with dual weapon and unarmed techniques. Form 6 9-Man, on the other hand, was a balanced and versatile jack-of-all-trades technique that was intended to be easily learned and applicable to almost any combat situation, building upon the ideals of moderation and chaining force abilities into blade sequences. The foundation of Ataru and 9-Man was an effective blending of the two arts, tempering the overaggression of Ataru while giving 9-Man a serious bite that it lacked. Many of Ventress's opponents commented on Dooku's influence in her technique, indicating that she was most certainly trained in Form 2 Makashi. Form 2 was an ancient blade-to-blade technique optimized for dueling, and was noted for being the most refined and intricate form among the 7, using linear cut-and-thrust feather-touch swordplay to subtly bypass an opponent's defenses and set them up for a lethal blow. To accommodate the twin blades, Ventress simplified the blade work, using one blade to set up for the other to avoid the two entangling, and employed wide circular sweeps and slashes, in many ways being almost bird-like in her approach, using acrobatic rotations to maneuver the two weapons and set up for strikes and counters, favoring relaxed stances and footwork, relying almost exclusively on dexterity to get around her lackluster strength. She further supplemented her technique with blade binds, thrusts, unarmed strikes, and chain force attacks into her sequences. When on the defensive, she employed block and counter combinations, or cross blocks to trap an opponent's blade. The importance of having to balance her awareness between two weapons made Ventress exceptional at multitasking and handling multiple opponents. In times of need, Ventress would link the two blades together, creating a saber staff, allowing her to use her strength and take advantage of the unorthodox weapon due to the blades being offset by the S-curve of the hilt, making it difficult to defend against, as she could change the position of the blades by rotating the hilt in her hands. However, this technique was less refined in her skill in Uruk-Hai, and her focus, much like Dooku, on dexterity-based blade work left her unable to contend with strength-based fighters, and her combat effectiveness was crippled immensely by the loss of one of her blades, a noted weakness among Uruk-Hai practitioners. One of the main lessons that Ventress received from Dooku was in Dun Mok, the Sith school of psychological warfare, and she was likely given the same speech that Dooku gave to Grievous.
If you are to succeed in combat against the best of the Jedi, you must have fear, surprise, and intimidation on your side. For if any one element is lacking, it would be best for you to retreat. You must break them before you engage them. Only then will you ensure victory and have your trophy.
Much in the same way as Grievous, Ventress would use unconventional warfare and psychological taunts and actions to break her opponent's composure with theatrics and verbal jabs. Feint and ambush, confuse the enemy's defenses with multi-directional assaults and diversions. Shock and surprise, change the rules of the engagement by cycling through her skills and fighting dirty if need be. In essence, subvert and overwhelm. Asajj Ventress's two most persistent opponents during the Clone Wars were the Master and Knight pair Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, contending with them both on numerous occasions, soundly defeating Kenobi on Umadun, and she enjoyed a comfortable advantage against Skywalker during their initial engagement on Yavin 4. However, while Ventress was cunning and assertive, she was undermined by pride and could be outwitted by more wild opponents or extremes in power and technique. She would sometimes go too far with the theatrical posturing, or start outright gloating, which has given some opponents the opportunity to pick themselves up and fight back. The rage and anger that drove her power could be undermined or used to provoke her, which has led to her losing her composure and flying into a berserker rage, and leaving her vulnerable to counterattack, responding to compassion and mercy with violence. When tussling with Mace Windu on Rule, she contended with him for a time, but realized she was overmatched, deciding to flee, justifying her cowardice as cutting her losses and living to fight another day. Though she would keel over when put under enough pressure, it took Jedi Master level combatants to do so, and all of her martial skill was developed to a high degree, allowing her to engage with some of the reigning Swordmasters of the era, defeating Kit Fisto, contending with Kenobi and Skywalker on an equal level over the course of the war, squaring evenly with Plo Koon, and putting up a hell of a fight against Windu. In essence, Ventress combined the finesse and refined swordsmanship of Dooku with the fear and dirty tactics of General Grievous. As far as rank-and-file Jedi Knights and Padawans were concerned, Ventress was essentially untouchable, something that several of her opponents have learned the hard way. Darth Maul originally wielded a standard lightsaber and was trained with a variety of exotic weapons, most notable being the Electro Staff, which built a foundation for his eventual technique. After his defeat at the hands of Ciela Urmunka, Maul constructed a traditional saber staff, building off his original lightsaber by extending the hilt and adding a secondary emitter matrix at the opposite end. The weapon was fitted with a quad set of red synthetic crystals, projecting red plasma blades, and could switch between a long-handled single saber or a traditional saber staff, and was able to continue to function after being sliced in half. Maul's initial foundational training was in Nine-Man and Teräs Käsi. Nine-Man was a jack-of-all-trades form based around harmonizing with an opponent, teaching moderation and applying just enough force to get the job done, and incorporating force-based attacks into lightsaber sequences, as well as training in alternative weapon variants. Teräs Käsi was an alternative unarmed fighting form, designed to allow non-force sensitives to be able to stand their ground against Jedi and other force wielders. After he successfully defeated Ciela Urmunka with his saber staff, he expanded his knowledge base into Uruk-Hai to learn how to use the saber staff more effectively, culminating with what he considered to be a mastery of a corrupt version of Juyo. Juyo, the seventh lightsaber form, was the most physically demanding of all forms, pairing off jagged and unpredictable staccato sequences with heavy force-assisted acrobatics and pure unrestrained emotion. Rather than taking the path of the Berserker akin to Sora Bulk, Darth Sidious, or other practitioners of Form 7, Maul instead took the path of Mace Windu and applied it to Juyo, channeling the dark side to boost his combat efficiency and discipline, resulting in a versatile and methodical technique, combining the ferocity and uncompromising aggression of Juyo with Vodpad's discipline and technical focus, on top of his skill with Nine-Man, Uruk-Hai, and Teräs Käsi. Maul would occasionally deviate from his saber staff technique, such as when he opened his bout with Qui-Gon Jinn on Tatooine with his single saber technique, which was enough to pressure the Jedi Master and left him visibly exhausted after he disengaged. When engaging Jinn again alongside his Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi on Naboo, Maul opened with his saber staff, the Phantom Menace novelization describing him as entering a battle-trance state, maintaining awareness of both blades. Maul employed a roving tactical retreat, separating the master and student before surgically dissecting Jinn and impaling him upon his blade. He used Jinn's defeat to goad Kenobi into attacking him recklessly, which partially backfired when Kenobi severed his saber staff in half. He managed to turn this around by engaging Kenobi in a blade lock and force pushing him into one of the reactor pits. However, his arrogance and desire to toy with his foe allowed Kenobi to summon his master's weapon and cut Maul in half, plunging him into the Theed reactor shaft. After being resurrected, Maul used the massacre of the villagers on Raydonia to lure out Kenobi and proceeded to toy with him before Ventress intervened and teamed up with Kenobi against the Zabrak brothers. After an initial bout of blades, Maul separated and engaged Kenobi and used Dunmok to unbalance him and outfence him, causing Kenobi and Ventress to flee. On Florum, Maul used similar tactics against Kenobi and Adi Gallia, partially breaking Kenobi with the death of Gallia, then chasing him into a tunnel in Hondo's hideout. Although he put up a solid fight against Kenobi, even with him adopting an offensive stance against the Zabrak brothers and playing Uruk-Hai, Maul was forced to retreat after Kenobi severed one of Opress's arms. On Mandalore, against his former master, Sidious used Uruk-Hai to contend with the brothers before guiding the fight to the plaza outside the royal palace, disabling Maul with telekinesis before toying with Opress and butchering him, using his death as a crucible to break Maul's composure. However, Maul met Sidious's Uruk-Hai with his own before being overwhelmed by his master's superior strength in the Force, and Sidious gleefully proceeded to torture him with Force lightning before capturing him. When squaring off with Ahsoka Tano during the Republic's siege of Mandalore, Maul opened with his reforged saber staff and contended evenly with the former Jedi, even disarming her of one of her blades. However, it was Maul's willingness to cut ties with his forces and leave them to die to save his own skin that caused his defeat at Tano's hands, combined with her martial skill being the student of Anakin Skywalker. On Malachor, Maul effortlessly slew 2 of the 3 Inquisitors before turning his sights onto Kanan Jarrus, literally blindsiding him but underestimating Jarrus' resolve and developed skill, and he freely admitted that Vader was too powerful for him to take on before stealing Vader's ship and fleeing. Finally, after tracking Kenobi to Tatooine, both combatants assumed their original stances when they fought on Naboo before switching over to their preferred styles. It was ultimately Kenobi's mastery of Sarisu and familiarity with Maul's saber-staff technique that led to Maul finally being defeated, slain with a single slash. To summarize, Maul's ferocity, technique, and comfort in one-to-one engagements made him optimized for dealing with low Council Master level combatants, and made him a credible threat to mid-level Council Masters. And though he was not a pure psychological fighter, he understood when the best time was to stay silent and when to gloat and employ taunts and barbs. As martial combatants, Ventress and Maul are perfect foils for one another. Both were assassin-esque fighters, building versatile fighting styles optimized for one-to-one matches and also adaptable for any other type of situation. Ventress' technique was more focused and optimized for single combat, as reflected in her weaponry, but Maul's saber-staff technique is a perfect foil for this. Ventress' saber-staff technique is too unrefined to get her any traction, and she was effectively screwed if she was disarmed with one of her blades, something that Maul is perfectly capable of doing. However, there does exist a chance that Ventress could slice Maul's saber-staff in 2, reducing his effectiveness, if only slightly, as a single saber technique is perfectly serviceable to contend with Ventress' Uruk-Hai. As far as conduct in single combat was concerned, both fighters used psychological warfare to break their opponent's measure and dissect them stem to stern, but Ventress used Dunmok more proactively in combination with her force abilities, even with the risk of her opponents rallying from being pummeled into submission. However, Maul's battle conduct, maintaining his discipline even in the face of a tricky opponent, will allow him to give Ventress difficulty. His wild, slippery nature will cause Ventress to become unsettled and overextend, flying into a berserker rampage, something that Maul has experience dealing with. However, this is a two-way street. If Ventress can break Maul's state of mind, Maul will most likely channel his rage. However, this would likely strengthen his determination to win rather than create the desired effect. I declare Darth Maul and Asajj Ventress equal as martial artists.